Hey there, guys. Welcome to today's show. We're talking all about the 80/20 rule in training and in life as well. And this is commonly known as Pareto's principle. Some people might be more familiar with it, but this is an important principle that you can apply to your health, your fitness, your training, your nutrition, your work, your relationships. The applications are all over the place. And this is so important because most guys get caught up in the wrong things that don't really push the needle forward in the areas that matter the most. And by not realizing what outputs are creating the biggest input, you're going to either waste time reaching your goals or find yourself on the wrong path to getting there altogether. So listen up today to learn about the 80/20 rule. What is it and how it applies to making incredible progress in your training and in your life. Now, 80/20 principle, Pareto's principle, commonly said, is essentially saying that 80% of our results come from 20% of our efforts. So, in an example of, say, fitness, it would say that 80% of our, physique improvements, our strength improvements can come from 20% of the work we're putting in. Or this can work the opposite way. In nutrition, it can say that uh, the you know the limitations of being where you're at could come from the 20% of the cheat eating you're doing, or the things you're eating that can cause the majority of why you're not reaching your goals. We see this in business and work related stuff, that for people working with certain clients, 80% of our revenue can come from 20% of your top clients. So what this is showing is just that we expect that everything, it's logical to think that there's this 1-to-1 ratio of effort to results. We want to think that there's this belief that if I put in, X amount of hours, I'll get the same return on investment. And this isn't true. It's easy to think that way, but people fail to realize that, and this is true in training and across other areas of your lives, is that the efforts which really create the most results are not necessarily done in proportion to all the other things we're doing. And if you could spend less time and get near identical results, would that be worth it? What if you could double down on those efforts that are pushing you forward and make even more progress in the same amount of time? Again, these are things that are possible because, although it's frustrating to think about that we're doing a lot of things that might not be getting the majority of our results, these are also the types of insights and actions that you can draw from and be aware of this principle and apply that to the different areas of your life. Like I said, I know how frustrating it is to realize that all your efforts don't hold equal weight in the progress you're making, but there's freedom in that too, because once you start to identify what those efforts are, you're really set to improve like never before. And this is, as I talk with a lot of coaching clients I work with, are busy individuals, they're business owners, they're people that they're professionals that are working hard at their craft. And a lot of times fitness and health take the back seat. So when that's the case, we have to realize that there's extreme advantage to something like this 80/20 principle, because we don't need hours and hours every week to create the majority of results. Now, if we could do a little more, would we squeak out another 10 to 20% of improvement? Possibly. But if these busy individuals can put in 20% of the time, 20% of the effort, prioritize effort on the right things, and get 80% of the results, they'll take that all day, especially when they have other commitments going on, other things going on. And this can be seen, a simple example of fitness would be prioritizing compound movements, sprints, things like that, that are heavy, bang for your buck type exercises, that while a normal program would have, say you do squats and then you do lunges and you do some, classically at the gym, you're doing leg extensions and leg presses and different squat variations, and then you're finished with some core. What if we just did squats and lunges, a couple sets of each? You do those either at high intensity, a good solid weight, and you're probably going to get a good chunk of the benefits that you're getting with all those other things in mind. Yes, those other accessory things might squeeze out a little more results, but maybe not as much as you think. On the nutrition side of things, it's things like, the 20% we're focusing on, and this is going to vary person to person, but it might be something as simple as limit snacking. No snacking, only eat your 2 or 3 square meals. Could be eliminating processed foods, sugars, focus on the quality of foods. It could be limiting alcohol for some people. And if you can identify what that thing is, this will usually get people I work with 80% or more of their nutrition benefits that they're after in terms of how they're looking, how they're feeling. And the nice thing is it doesn't have to be complicated, but you do have to identify in your specific situation what those 20% things are. What are those things that are really driving things forward? And how do you either focus more time on it or simply focus on those and get the same amount of results without having to be overwhelmed with trying to fit all these things in? So another extreme example, not related to fitness, Warren Buffett, a very, very wealthy man, he's been said to say that 90% of his earnings he can be attributed to 10 or so investments. And this is someone who, that's what he does for a living. And it's the small amount, those ones that he went all in on, those things that he was so sure on, that got him more than 90% of his earnings. And that's incredible to think about, because people think they play the volume game and they think, well, if 1 is good, then 10 is better. And I'm just going to play the numbers game and try and do more. But it's about going all in on those things that really provide the most benefit. So how can you start to apply this to your own lives? First, you want to make sure to identify it. What areas are you getting the most benefit from? This is something that until we know what that is, it's hard to know what we should be working on. And this is something that pick the area that is most important that you're trying to work on. Say that's fitness, say that's nutrition, say that's stress management, any of those things, and start to be more aware. Start to take some inventory of where that's doing, what is doing the, giving the most benefit. You might have to do a little bit of digging on this. You might have to do some reflecting. If you have any objective numbers, those always help as well. But just start to identify, say what is really making the most benefit. If you're working out 10 hours a week, a good thought process is to say, if I only had 1 hour a week to work out, if I had 1 hour stretched out over the course of the week, where would I be spending my time? How about if I only had a half hour? What would I be spending my time doing? And that's the way that you're going to start to change your thought process and start to think about, how can I look at this differently? What are the things that are carrying the most weight? And then prioritize those things first. And then the other things you can choose to either use and still do those as accessory work, as supplements to what you're doing. Or if you're short on time already, dish those things and see if the same results are there. Which leads us to point number 2. You got to make sure to measure it. Choose what you want to test, and you have to run a mini experiment to see. So say your most important goal is, let's take body fat percentage. You would want to test your body fat percentage. And once you've identified it, which we talked about in the last step, once you identified what you think those primary things are, those things that might not be taking up the most time, but those things that are providing the most benefit, try taking out the other 80% of the fluff that's out there that you think might be helping. And then, do that for a period of time and recheck something like body fat percentage. See if it improves, see if it gets worse, see if it stays the same. That's the only way to know if you're on the right track. But if you take out that 80% of stuff where you're like, I'm kind of doing it, I'm taking these supplements here, I added an extra cardio day here and there. If you're not sure if those things are working, the measurement will tell you. If you notice that it improves, it's like, maybe those aren't as essential as I thought they were. If it gets worse, then you're like, maybe I picked the wrong 20%. Maybe that stuff I do think is the most important actually isn't. And if it stays the same, then you know that, hey, I can put in less hours, less effort towards this and get the same amount of results. Or I can double down on what I'm doing and see even more results. Last step for you guys, think about trying to would say 10x it. So think about, how can I get 10 times the results that I'm after? Instead of we try, and a lot of times, and we have some limiting beliefs that say like, oh, I want to get 1% better here. And I think 1% better every day is a great goal, but you gotta step back and think big picture sometimes and say, what would I need to do to get 10 times better than where I'm at? And this can be in fitness, this can be any area of your health, this can be in your work, your career. How do I get 10 times better than where I'm at right now? And that's going to cause you to think differently. That's going to cause you to focus on what those few things are that would really drive you forward. Because you might make a list of 100 things you can do. And then if I ask you to pick only 3 of those things or only one of those things, it's going to create some different answers and some things that you're like, so if I want to do that, these are really the things I need to focus the most on. And that's the importance of one thing, which I've talked about so often in previous podcasts, but focusing on those few things that create the most results. Because it's tempting to think that you have to put in 1% of effort to get 1% back on results. But that's actually a limiting mindset. Start thinking of how can I 10x or 100x the result that I'm after. And that will really force you to focus on those small things that create the most change. The last thing, just want to, before we wrap things up, is that remember this should be applied both to positive things and negative things. So as we talk fitness, it could be what 20% of my fitness efforts are creating 80% of my results. But on the negative side of things, it could say, I'm under a lot of stress right now. What of 80% of the things I'm stressed about, 80% of my stress, what 20% of things are going on that might be causing that stress? What 20% of my decisions or my choices are leading to 80% of my stress? An easy example that would be if you do not have the ability to say no, that might be the one thing that's causing 80% of your stress. If you're overcommitting, you're stretched thin, you're saying yes to everything. You're like, why am I'm stressed by this and this and this. You're not actually stressed by all those things. You're stressed about the inability to say no, which causes these commitments that add up over time. So that's a way to use it both on the positive lens and the negative lens, but both can help you really drive your progress forward. Now to wrap it up, you could waste a lot of time and energy on the wrong things by failing to see this 80-20 principle at work. And I want you guys to know that this 80-20 principle it's not a magic ratio that always falls into 80-20. For some people, it could be 90-10 in certain areas. It could be 70-30. The number is less important than the principle that's at work. Now, instead, imagine spending less time getting the same results by focusing on the few important activities that matter the most. And this is possible when you start to be aware of this, when you start to identify it, measure it, test it, and then run with it. Now, one of my favorite authors on leadership and a great speaker out there, John Maxwell, he said, you cannot overestimate the unimportance of practically everything. Start focusing on what truly matters and watch your progress just soar. Now, if you guys are looking for more specific guidance as relates to training, as relates to nutrition, health, fitness, other areas of your life, make sure to join other men that are getting their physical and mental edge back to reach high levels of performance inside and outside the gym. Check out our high performance health coaching program. There's a link in the show notes, menmadeformore.com/apply, and set up a free strategy session with myself by heading on over to that link, fill out a quick application, and we'd love to fill you guys in more on what we're doing with the high performance health coaching program. So make sure to check that out if you guys are interested in getting your edge back. Keep up with this, guys. Keep working, keep learning. I appreciate all you guys. I'll talk to you soon.